مساء الخير وأهلا بكم إلى هذه الحلقة الجديدة من واشنطن أونلاين. يقلق الأردن من تجارة المخدرات العابرة للحدود على الحدود الجنوبية لسوريا، كما تبدي عمان تخوفا مستمرا من نشاطات الميليشيات المدعومة إيرانيا على الحدود الجنوبية، والتي بدأ بعضها يتسرب بنشاطاته والفوضى التي يصدرها إلى الداخل الأردني. فيطلب جلالة الملك عبد الله من الرئيس الأمريكي جو بايدن تدخلا أمريكيا سريعا على الحدود الجنوبية لسوريا. فهل تستجيب واشنطن؟ وهل يعود التنسيق الأمني الأمريكي مع الأردن لضبط الحدود الجنوبية لسوريا؟ لمناقشة هذا الموضوع أرحب بضيفتي السيدة كارولاين روز، الباحثة في الشأن السوري في معهد نيو لاينز الأمريكي، تنضم إلينا من العاصمة الأمريكية واشنطن. أهلا وسهلا بك سيدة كارولاين روز، شكرا لانضمامك إلينا اليوم.
My pleasure.
كتبت مؤخرا بحثا مطولا عن تجارة المخدرات العابرة للحدود في سوريا، وهو الأمر الذي يقلق دول الجوار وتحديدا الأردن. جلالة الملك عبد الله تحدث مع الرئيس بايدن هنا في واشنطن أكثر من مرة عن قلق الأردن من الفوضى على الحدود السورية الأردنية. كيف ممكن أن يتصدى الأردن بالتعاون مع الولايات المتحدة لمثل هذه المشكلة؟
Well, certainly the Captagon trade and especially the uptick of Captagon smuggling operations along the Syrian Jordanian border has put the Jordanian military and the Jordanian government on high alert. Given that not only Captagon has been smuggled through this border, but on top of that, there's been a series of violent clashes, sometimes fatal clashes between Jordanian armored personnel and of course these Syrian smugglers that have connections, many of them with the Syrian regime's 4th Division, as well as Hezbollah and IRGC aligned militias. So this has been a priority for the Jordanian border surveillance system and Jordanian border security as a whole. And really, I think has increased the need to strengthen Jordan's surveillance system along its border with Syria, as well as, of course, increase its monitoring efforts and change its rules of engagement as it is seeking to interdict and prevent these smugglers from entering its border. Now, of course, on a different level, addressing a demand and the rising demand for Captagon inside of Jordan, I think that the government is going to have to assess the opportunities and the resources for increased harm reduction and rehabilitation centers and treatment services as there are more Captagon consumers and those that are suffering from Captagon dependency inside of the kingdom. And of course, for the United States, this definitely renews a concern about Jordanian border security, as well as, of course, the overspill of violence and violent actors that are trying to not only smuggle Captagon, but a number of other illicit substances. And of course, achieve these means through very violent behavior using advanced weaponry such as drones, armored personnel carriers, organized columns sometimes in order to successfully smuggle these goods into Jordan.
نعم، قبل أشهر اشترط الكونغرس الأمريكي على إدارة جو بايدن أن تقدم دراسة مفصلة، فهم مفصل وحلول مقترحة لمشكلة الكبتاغون السوري الذي يصل اليوم حتى إلى دول أمريكا الجنوبية. هل الإدارة ممكن أن تعمل الآن على مثل هذا الملف في ظل انشغالها في حرب أوكرانيا، في ملفات داخلية كبيرة هنا في الولايات المتحدة قبل الانتخابات النصفية المقبلة؟
I think that the Biden administration is certainly ready to begin more serious monitoring efforts of the Captagon trade. I mean, especially when it comes to interagency coordination and communication. I think that's definitely one of the most needed steps thus far. And this administration has been open to that, as well as, of course, increasing their information and intelligence sharing activities with their partners in the region, increasing the likelihood of tip-offs and interdiction efforts, as well as, of course, being an open and receptive ally to countries that are looking for increased, monitoring efforts and aid in interdiction and, of course, healthcare services.
نعم كارولاين، يبدو أن جلالة الملك عبد الله يحظى بمكانة هامة هنا في واشنطن بالنسبة لإدارة جو بايدن. تم استقباله مرتين في البيت الأبيض، في حين أن بايدن لم يكن قد التقى بعد عدد من الزعماء العرب المقربين أيضا من الولايات المتحدة بعد. الجانب الأردني يقترح أن يكون هناك نوع من التواصل مع دمشق، وإن كان يعني عن مضض، لكي يتم التنسيق حول أمور تتعلق بالحدود، تتعلق بمعالجة مخاوف الأردن، أولا من مسألة تهريب المخدرات، وأيضا ثانيا من المخاوف من انتشار الميليشيات المدعومة إيرانيا على الحدود. هل تلقى هذه الدعوات، هذه المطالب الأردنية أذان صاغية في البيت الأبيض؟
Absolutely, and especially given the fact that the United States has provided a lot of advisory and resources, advisory assistance, and monetary resources and security resources that have strengthened the Jordanian border in the past. The very advanced Jordanian security and surveillance system that is in place right now, a lot of that was accomplished with the United States assistance. And so, certainly, I think that one of the easiest steps for this administration thus far has been to seek to strengthen that surveillance system and strengthen its monitoring systems, especially during vulnerable points, during very harsh weather conditions, and times where smugglers can easily exploit some of the vulnerabilities of the surveillance system. So I think that definitely the United States is going to seek to help Jordan in strengthening its border security system, as well as, of course, provide advice, technical expertise, and assistance as their forces try and realign and bolster the defense and security of this border in order to interdict Captagon.
نعم، أيضا من الملفات الأخرى التي تقلق الأردن ويطلب الأردن تدخل عربي وأيضا أمريكي لحلها هي مسألة احتواء الوجود الميليشياوي المدعوم إيرانيا على الحدود السورية مع الأردن. هناك مخاوف وتصريحات أردنية حول تراجع النفوذ الروسي على الأراضي السورية لصالح ميليشيات مدعومة إيرانيا في ظل الحرب المستمرة حتى اليوم في أوكرانيا. هل تعتقدي كارولاين أن هذا أمر حقيقي؟ هل يتراجع فعلا النفوذ الروسي على الأراضي السورية لصالح إيران؟
Absolutely. I think that we've already seen evidence of Iran aligned militias and Hezbollah starting to build and scout out more Captagon production facilities, as well as carry out increased trafficking operations across this border, which certainly is ringing alarm bells in Amman as well as in Washington, given that this is a very grave concern, not only because it's led to a series of violent incidents between Jordanian border forces and these smugglers, but on top of that, it really does speak to Iran's increasing regional role and security influence as it stretches its campaign across the Levant. And having a stakehold, having a very concrete footprint in southern Syria does not serve the United States nor Jordan's strategic interests. So recent evidence that Hezbollah has been staking out new Captagon manufacturing facilities in Dara and Sueda, as well as, of course, trying to increase their foothold and their role in these trafficking operations, definitely is something that I think the United States is concerned, especially as JCPOA negotiations are not as successful as Washington anticipated in Vienna. So this is very much on the radar of the United States and Jordan and its allies in the region.
نعم، في هذه الحالة على واشنطن أن تختار بين لاعبين مناوئين أصلا للمصالح الأمريكية ولما تريده أمريكا على الأراضي السورية، وهما طبعا روسيا وإيران. هل تصعب هذه الخيارات الصعبة أصلا مسألة تدخل أمريكا، مسألة وضع أمريكا ثقل سياسي أكبر في الملف السوري؟ هل تنفر هذه المصالح الروسية والإيرانية الكبيرة في سوريا أمريكا وتبعدها عن التدخل أكثر في الشأن السوري؟
I think that in some ways, the Captagon trade is an opportunity for the United States to engage in Syria in areas that it has not been able to, and just because of this very narrow box it's been placed in regarding the involvement of Russia, the involvement of Iran, and a lot of its this very tricky web of alliances and security partnerships that the United States has struggled to navigate. Because when it comes to the Captagon trade, it's affecting transit countries where the United States has a strategic influence in stabilizing and in promoting a secure landscape and promoting human security. And the Captagon trade has threatened this. And really, when it comes to countries like Jordan, when it comes to countries like Iraq, like Lebanon, like countries in the Persian Gulf, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the United States has the capacity, it has the advisory and technical expertise to assist these countries in interdicting Captagon. So this really is an opportunity for the United States to collaborate with these partners in the region and bolster their defenses against this trade.
نعم كارولاين، في الدراسة الأخيرة التي عملت حضرتك عليها تتحدثي عن عوائد طائلة، أموال طائلة تجنيها سوريا من صناعة المخدرات، صناعة الكبتاغون تحديدا. أين تذهب هذه العوائد؟ من يستفيد منها؟
It's a great question. So the recent New Lines report that was published in April of 2022 recorded that the recorded seizures that were conducted in 2021, these are all of the seizures that were reported by governments that were interdicted at maritime or overland ports that are documented. The value of those seizures surpassed $5.7 billion. So we have good evidence that the Captagon trade is well over that 5.7 value. Now, it's impossible to determine exactly how much that is. Likely it's over $6 billion. But because we don't know, we don't have a measurement, of course, of the Captagon shipments that were not seized. It's very difficult to identify exactly how much in totality the trade is worth, as well as exactly how much money is being rerouted into the pockets of producers and traffickers and dealers that are implicated in the Captagon trade. But likely this is very much a primary money-making machine for members of the 4th Division, those that have been aligned with the Syrian regime's security apparatus, and their partners on the ground, such as Hezbollah and Iran-aligned militias. Of course, there are other non-state actors that are active in small-scale Captagon production and smuggling operations, but these are the primary players of the Captagon trade.
كارولاين، ماذا عن عقوبات قيصر؟ ألا تتمكن عقوبات قيصر من عرقلة تصنيع المخدرات في سوريا وعرقلة استفادة المسؤولين عن هذه الصناعة من العائدات التي تجنيها؟
I think yes and no. I think that certainly the sanctions provided an incentive for increased Captagon production among many of the individuals that are aligned with the Syrian regime. They definitely created an incentive for an alternative revenue stream. But at the same time, it's worth noting the Captagon trade had existed in Syria, especially on a smaller level before, but still a level with a lot of these regime aligned and implicated actors. Those that have been involved in Syria's construction, agriculture, poultry, and business sectors. They've always had a degree of involvement in Captagon production and trafficking. However, of course, after 2019, 2018, there was an increased incentive to double down on their efforts in the Captagon trade. And I think this has been exacerbated by Syria's economic situation, which has been absolutely devastating. And that, of course, I think has provided a new reason and a new incentive to harvest and garner these alternative revenue streams. Certainly, I think that there are a lot of individuals that are participating in Captagon that have been sanctioned by the United States and its allies, as well as individuals that have not been subject to any types of targeted sanctions on their business activities. So there's a lot of companies, shell companies, and a lot of business activities and individuals that have not been subject to sanctions yet that do have quite a bit of evidence of involvement in production and trafficking operations.
شكرا جزيلا لك كارولاين روز، كنت معنا عبر سكايب من واشنطن.
Thank you so much for having me.
شكرا لكل متابعي نورث بريس وواشنطن أونلاين. ألقاكم في حلقة جديدة الأسبوع المقبل. إلى اللقاء.